Welcome back, y'all, to another episode of the podcast with me and Ryan. The podcast name is currently Podcast of Brotherly Love, but after doing some research, because the podcast was gone for a while before we just brought it back, there's a pretty big podcast now on YouTube that has like almost the exact same name. So we're considering a rebrand. If you've got any ideas, let us know because we're trying to figure it out. I went to Chat GPT because I thought it'd be fun to see if it could come up with any good basketball podcast names. Some of the worst podcast names I've ever heard in my entire life, like Ruminations is not good. What else do we have? I asked like specifically, I was like, what about one with like two brothers? It came up with NBA kinship, brothers on the basketball court.
So formal sounding.
It's so bad. Hoops and kin, brothers discussing the NBA. Like, they're not good. So if you have any suggestions, let us know. We've got a couple of ideas that we think are pretty good, but we'd love to hear what y'all have to say. To kind of give you all a say in potentially what this podcast could be named. So yeah, that's kind of the preface to start off the podcast. But yeah, we have had a lot happen since we last talked. The NBA draft went down. There was the Chris Paul Jordan Poole trade that ended up happening too on draft day. Did we pod before or after the Porzingis stuff? That happened.
That was before.
The podcast was before the Porzingis stuff?
I think so. Yeah, because you went ham on the videos, and that was after that we posted that.
Oh, that's true. That was after the. Yeah. So there's also that trade that I guess we can go ahead and talk about too. Yeah. Okay. It was the day before the Kristaps stuff, so we can talk about that too. But first, I guess we'll get into the draft to kind of start off because that's the most recent thing to talk about. Ryan said he's got a trivia question for me about the draft. He has not told me what this is. I asked if I needed to come up with a trivia question for him. He said no. So I don't know what his trivia question is, but I'll let you go ahead and put it out there. Also, I'm hopefully going to have this one in the first episode on audio platforms. The problem is we don't know what the podcast is going to be called. So we'll see.
Podcast to be named later.
The podcast to be named later potentially.
So either podcast.
Yeah, so either this one will be on just like under Podcast of Brotherly Love. I'll put a link or something down below for sure. But okay, I'll let you do your trivia question. Whatever it is, you said it was draft related.
Yeah. So first of all, I think Cash Considerations Kinship is kind of a fire podcast name. So if you guys
Cash Considerations Kinship,
yeah, with some courtside conversations mixed in there, because that was another one that Chat GPT brought up, just all the C's. So if you guys think that's a fire name, make sure you let us know below, so that way that can be our podcast name. Okay. But I'm also slightly offended that this is a podcast between us and we don't see each other every day because we don't live, near each other. And you didn't even ask how I was doing on air, so I think that's kind of messed up.
All right, how are you doing? We've texted like all day today. We've been texting the entire day.
But the people at home don't know that.
Okay, Ryan, how are you doing?
I just had some Asian zing wings. I'm wearing my hat backwards because my hair looks awful. And I could be sleeping right now, so it could be a lot worse. But, we're thriving. And I have a good trivia question for you. This is where...
Here on the... I'm trying to find one of the podcast names. Here on the Ball and Breakdown, Two Guys Analyzing the Game podcast.
Oh, we really know how to analyze some game. Let me tell you.
I'm just gonna change the podcast name
every. Can we be NBA Riz? Can that be our name?
NBA Riz. Good lord. Let's move on to the trivia question. Please do not contribute to the Rim Ruminator. That's got to be the worst one it came up with. It's so bad. We could be the B-Ball Bonanza podcast, like it suggested.
The Banana Boat, bro. There we go. Banana Boat Bros.
I feel like the Banana Boat company itself would sue us.
Nah, man, we're not that big yet.
Not yet, but if something ever happens and it becomes big, we are absolutely getting a lawsuit from the Banana Boat company.
All right, well, after you nail this trivia question, maybe then we'll be big enough to get sued by somebody. But hold on one second, I got to pull it up. I did some extensive research to find these answers.
Okay, he's very proud of himself, y'all. He came up with this by himself.
Yeah. So we're gonna share some love to some second round picks because there's some pretty notable ones out there, but. We're going to show some love to all of them. And, it was really sad watching some people get picked really late and they were just sitting there looking really sad. And then I always think back to the clip of Bol, who was invited to the green room. And my man just was sitting there until
I'm glad there were a couple of guys that were in there for a while. I'm glad they didn't zoom in on them like they did with Bol in that one draft because I think they learned their lesson. But
I don't know. Cam Whitmore looked pretty depressed there waiting to get his name called.
I mean, hey, he didn't even fall to the second round like Bol did. And we'll talk a bit about him in particular in a little bit.
With Bol?
No, we won't talk about Bol much on this pod. I would not imagine Bol's discussed much.
This isn't the Bol Bros podcast.
Yeah. Chat GPT didn't give me that one, so
Yeah, ChatGPT might let you cheat on your homework pretty well, but it's apparently not good at podcasting.
It's not good at podcast names. I thought it would be funny to see what it came up with. It was not funny. It was just incredibly disappointing.
Yep. All right, you ready?
Yep.
All right, if you successfully get this done, so there's 7 answers. If you can name all 7 without getting one wrong, I will Venmo you $7.
Okay.
If you
There's
get
a
them
lot
all
on the
right,
line.
if you get them all right with unlimited guesses, then you just get a round of applause. And everyone,
Okay.
everyone that watches this will just think you're so good at basketball. If you don't get them
Okay.
right, then they'll think I'm just a trivia god, and that you.
Okay. So
that's
there's
pretty
3
much where we're at
outcomes.
right
I
there.
get $7, I get a round of applause, or everyone hates me are the 3 outcomes for this basketball podcast trivia question.
It sounds like a win-win if you ask me.
I mean, I guess so.
All right, I'd say 2 of these answers are gimmies. Like if you
Okay.
actually didn't get those 2, I think you would act. We'd probably have to stop recording.
Okay.
But all right, I know win shares are not the best stat in the world, but they do kind of give you an idea about who was semi-decent last season.
Mm-hmm.
So give me the 7 people that were drafted in the second round that had the highest win shares last season.
Ooh, okay.
And you don't have to tell me them in order. But
I know the number 1 guy for sure. It's Nikola Jokic is the number 1.
Yep, that was one of the gimmies.
Okay. I know Jalen Brunson's probably on there.
He is number 3.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Those
yeah,
are just the
Jokic
first
is
2
one,
second round
Brunson
picks that came to mind. Okay. So let's go ahead now and think. Am I allowed to have like the NBA standings over on the side to just look at teams?
Yeah, you're chilling, bro.
Okay.
Even if you get stumped, I'll give you positions if you get stumped. Not
nah,
like
it's okay. I just don't want to make this take too long. All right.
Nah, you're good.
Second round picks, most win shares. Trying to think of teams and players. Let's see. Who are some great second round picks this past season? Let's see. I can think of one. I'm trying to think if he's going to be on there because he dealt with some injury for a little bit. But
I'll give you one hint. There's no.
I'm guessing
there's no rookies on here.
I didn't think there were any rookies on there. Is Draymond Green on there?
Draymond is not on there, so you are now a broke man. You will not have $10
well,
in Venmo.
I thought Draymond would be on there. I was worried about the injuries potentially, but I guess top 7.
He's just not a winning player, man. I think we've seen this,
Yeah, future Houston Rocket, James Harden, not James Harden, Draymond Green, according
Why
to
you. Why do you think Jordan Poole punched him, man? He said, "You're not a winning player, dude. Get off my court."
Other second round picks who were highly impactful. See, now I just want to like name like second round picks I know were impactful, but like because like someone that just came to mind, I'm not guessing him, but Herb Jones just came to mind. I know he's not going to be on there. If Draymond's not on there, I was going to say Herb's not on there.
Nope.
So I can't just say names because now I've lost $7 and I'm a bozo apparently. Let's look at some other great second round picks. See now, and another guy that came to mind is Chris Middleton, but he didn't play enough games. He's not going to be on there.
Not on there. Nope.
Other great second round picks. Jimmy was end of the first round, so not Jimmy. Let's see. Other great. He was like first round. I was gonna say DeJounte Murray for a second, but I think he was like 28.
I'll give you something that'll help you out a bit. Other than Jokic and Brunson, none of these guys are people I would consider all-star players.
Yeah, I didn't think so. There's not
very high quality players on here though.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah.
No all-stars.
Okay, no all-stars. Other great second-round picks. I'm just going through the list. No, he was taken in the first round. I almost said Siakam, but he was taken in the first round. So all these players, I'm thinking of all these guys that are like 28, 27th overall pick as opposed to a second rounder. Jeez, this is taking me longer than I thought. I'm just going through teams at the moment. Man, does undrafted count?
No, I didn't do undrafted.
You didn't do undrafted?
Freddie VanVleet would have been on there, but
I was going to say Austin Reeves, but he's undrafted. So
yeah, he was. I don't think I even came up though in the top.
Oh, really? I feel like he probably would have been close to that. He was definitely probably towards the top of undrafted guys, but
absolutely, yeah,
not for second round picks. Other second rounders that had a lot of win shares. Who else would be on there? Let's see.
I love that you probably have people watching right now. They're just screaming like, "Cone, you idiot! It's this person."
Oh, for sure. For some reason, the only guys that are coming to mind are like first round picks that like towards the end. Oh shoot, was he a second round pick? Was Christian Wood on there?
He is not on there.
Okay, I can't remember if Christian Wood was second round pick. I think he was the second round pick. I think he was in like the 40. I think he was 41 if I remember correctly.
That's kind of a pull, man, if you got that number right.
I'm going to actually look that up real quick to see if I got that one right.
No, I'll look that up while you keep thinking.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, he was undrafted. Why did I think he was drafted 41st? So I couldn't have even been on the list. I'm a fraud.
There's the other Christian Ward.
Anthony Simons?
No.
Was he also end of first round? Why am I saying only end of first round?
I'm pretty sure he was.
I think he was like 26th, 27th. This is not making for good podcast content right now because I'm literally blanking on second round picks. How about Mitchell Robinson?
Yes, Mitchell Robinson is on there. He is number 5.
Okay. Went over to Knicks. I should have just stayed on Knicks after getting Jalen Brunson.
And to help you out of the remaining players, we have 3 centers and a guard.
Okay, well that kind of changes things up because I was going to say Josh Hart for a moment, but I don't even think he was second round.
No, I don't think so.
I don't remember.
Our draft knowledge is not very great.
Centers and a guard. Let's see. Centers who were second round picks. Was he a second round pick? I think he was probably end of first round.
Who you got?
I was going to say Clint Capella.
I actually thought he was going to be on there, but he was end of first round.
Okay, that's what I thought. Other second rounders, man. I'm struggling. Apparently, I don't know what's going on, man.
Yeah, dude. I'll give you 2 more minutes, and then the people want to hear about other stuff.
Apparently, I don't know anything. It's for most part just trying to remember guys that were drafted in the second round and not end of the first round.
Yeah.
I don't remember where Bobby Portis was drafted specifically. But is Bobby Portis on there?
He's not.
Okay. What draft pick was Bobby Portis? Not second round pick. So you said 1 guard, 3 centers?
Yes, me. Yes. I almost said yes, ma'am. I'm so used to talking to all the old ladies at work. I'm like a good customer service person on the phone.
Claxton?
Yes, Claxton.
Okay, Claxton. I should have said him earlier. I thought about him, and I thought in my head for a moment he was a first rounder.
He was 31, I think.
Yeah, he was like right beginning of second round, I believe. So I've got 4 guys, 5 guys?
Yeah, if you name 4, you got 3 left.
Okay. And you said 2 centers and a guard?
Yep.
Okay. 2 more centers. Who else was a starting center? That was a second round pick. A second rounder. I still don't have that second guy, right?
Claxton was 2.
Claxton was 2? Okay.
Yeah, Jokic at 1, Claxton at 2, Brunson at 3, Robinson at 5. So you're missing 4, 6, and 7.
Okay, 4, 6, and 7. Okay, I'm glad I got the first 2 because if I didn't get the first, I was going to be frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Other second round picks. Let's see. Who else was there? Y'all don't really have any second round picks that are coming to mind. Just B-Ball Paul, and I don't think Paul Reed's on there. He's a free agent, isn't he?
Restricted, I believe. But
Restricted free agent? Okay. Someone's going to throw him a max. Rockets are going to chuck him a max to bring him alongside James Harden.
He would low-key be a good Rocket, I'm not going to lie.
He would be kind of nice over there. I can't lie. He'd be nice. Be a good backup 5. Apparently, they're trying to bring over Brook Lopez, which doesn't make sense to me because they've got Şengün as a starter.
But I thought if Şengün's the next Jokic, why would you bring him Brook Lopez over? That's what I don't get.
I don't understand. I don't know why they're trying to accelerate the timeline, especially when you get Amin Thompson and Cam Whitmore in this draft, who are both really, really fun players. I don't know why you just wouldn't. I don't know why you just wouldn't keep building around that squad. Okay.
All right. I think you got to tap out here, boss man.
Yeah, man. I'm blanking on second round guards. I was gonna think of the Miami Heat, but they've all only got is Kyle Lowry?
No, Kyle Lowry is not.
Oh, he's a first round pick. What am I talking about? Okay, just go ahead and let me know.
All right, so we got Jokic was first, Claxton was 2, Brunson was 3, Zubac was 4.
Zubats. Okay.
Yep. 5 was Mitchell Robinson. 6 is Spencer Dinwiddie. Or as Kyle Kuzma would call him, something else.
Best friends.
And then his former teammate Daniel Gafford was number 7.
I literally thought about Gafford, but I thought he was one of those 27, 28th overall pick guys.
He was in the 30s.
He was in the 30s. Mm-hmm. Man, okay. I got to up my second round pick knowledge, apparently.
Dang, bro. I didn't realize I made such a hard trivia question.
Yeah, next week I'm going to bring you something really, really fun. You're going to have a good time with next week.
You know more than me, man. I'm definitely not.
Nah, that was a good one. I'm proud of you for doing that research that you did there.
I know, man. It took me all 10 minutes, but
I don't know how Zubats never came to mind. I definitely thought of Gafford. Dinwiddie did not come to mind. I honestly completely forgot he was back on the Nets at this point. I was thinking of guards on each team, and I was like, No, not like Cam Thomas, not like a couple other guys in like the Eastern Conference. But oh well, you stumped me with this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that kind of brings us over to the draft. We can talk about some of our biggest takeaways from the draft. I guess really there's no controversy with the first overall pick. You've got Victor Wembanyama going to the Spurs. I know there was that video going around today of Vic like missing. I think he was doing like a photo shoot, or they were like just kind of getting some flicks of him on the court, and he was missing jumpers, and people were calling him a bust on the timeline.
Yeah, so when Connor sent out the questions for the podcast, which by the way you guys should be commenting on because we'll answer pretty much anything that's not crazy. One either within our format or at the end if we do questions. So make sure you smash that. Ask a lot of questions. But
also you can ask questions down below too in the comment section, and we'll also keep those in mind for the next episode.
Yeah. But my buddy texted me and he said, "Bro, I just saw this video of Wemby bricking all these shots." He's like, "Can you guys talk about him on the podcast? Let me know if you think he's going to be a bust or not." And I didn't respond for like 10 minutes. He sent a big JK. But shout out Overton for asking that question because I'm with you, man. I think he is going to be a bust after watching that. I don't think he stands any chance.
Yeah, man. After those missing those practice shots on his first day in the facility, I also think Vic's going to be a bust. He's gone from greatest prospect of all time to bust after one of those moments. But yeah, I mean, there's no controversy with Vic. We've known he's going to be the number one overall pick like a year and a half, probably even longer at this point. I mean, you had Adam Silver at the beginning of the season practically begging teams not to tank egregiously for Victor Wembanyama. He was like, "We really don't approve of tanking and this and that," just trying to get teams to not do some of the things that they ended up doing at the end of the season. The Pistons are probably the most egregious tankers, I guess I would say this year, and they ended up getting the 5th overall pick, so it didn't work out for them, but they do get a Sar Thompson, who's a great player. Spurs get Vic. He's going to be incredible. Like, there's not much else to say about that. And the real controversy started at 2 because all day the Hornets were, back and forth according to rumors. Shams said that they were heading a bit more back towards Scoot Henderson as maybe the 2nd overall pick, which many people felt like should have been the pick. There was also the huge buildup to the draft where everybody was basically saying that no, it was actually Brandon Miller the day of. Woj says that it's going to be Miller. Shams says that they're heading towards Scoot a little bit, but that Miller's still the favorite. And it ends up at the 2nd overall pick. The Hornets do go with Brandon Miller out of Alabama, allowing Scoot to go 3rd overall to the Blazers. I have said before on my channel that I think Scoot is the 2nd best player in this draft. I think he's incredible. I know people have said in response that it's a wings league, that he's a hyper athletic guard, but it's hard to win with a guard as your best player, which I don't really think is, that founded. Like Steph Curry has led. And I know Steph Curry is a different case, is like a top 10 player of all time, borderline at least. He's a different case for guards in this league, but I feel like you can win with any player as your best player. I mean, we saw Jokic just win as a center. We've seen LeBron, Kawhi win as like wings. Giannis is like more of like a big man. Steph wins as a guard. So I don't know. And I also don't think you can be thinking about how to win a championship when you're the Hornets, who are in the beginning of your rebuild. Like,
yeah, that's not the best thing to be thinking about, is like, who's going to win us a ring? Like, dog, no matter who you draft, they're not winning you a ring until you get a good team around them.
Yeah. Well, Brandon Miller was asked today, like, where do you see y'all going next season? And he said the NBA Finals. So he's got lofty expectations.
Goat, man. So I don't think
that's true. He did think Paul George was
Brandon Miller anything at this point.
Yeah. But I mean, I still think Brandon Miller is going to be a good player, but I don't know. To me, I feel like Scoot was the best player available. And maybe they did think and still do think that Brandon Miller was the best player available. But part of me feels like it was a fit situation. And I've been very vocal in saying that, especially at the top of the draft, when you're beginning your rebuild, you shouldn't draft for fit. You should draft for best player available, especially because I think the fit concerns with Scoot and LaMelo have been way overblown. I feel like those two guys can succeed. I mean, LaMelo's a great 3-point shooter. Scoot feels like he has skills that can translate to playing off ball. Even if it's a clunky fit for the first 1.5, 2 seasons, you're still a really far away from ever competing for a title. So you've got time to work that out. In worst case, you can end up trading one of them down the line if you need to, if they both become stars and it's not working out. Like, I don't know. I don't love the pick. I think Brandon Miller is going to be really good, and I'm rooting for him because I don't want to see anybody fail. But I just feel like Scoot was the guy they should have gone with.
Yeah, I think too, you have to take into account like sure LaMelo is like this all-star player, but you never know what could happen, man. I mean, like kind of like what and we're gonna talk about this a little bit later with Lonzo, but like you never know when someone's career just could kind of or like Derrick Rose back in the day. You never know when someone's career can just take like a turn for like worst case scenario. So it's not like you're drafting Scoot thinking like, oh, LaMelo is definitely going to be 100% healthy, playing for us every minute, every game for the next 10 years.
And he's had some injury concerns too
Yeah.
already, like the ankle concern, which, hopefully he's able to stick through that and everything. But yeah, nothing's like guaranteed in the NBA. I mean, we saw last year where the Pistons, Hardy had a guard in Cade Cunningham, and the fit between him and Jay Ivey was a bit weird, but they felt he was the best player available. So they took Jay Ivey, and him and Cade looked good. I mean, Cade hardly played this past season due to injury, but they looked solid in the moments they played together. And I think they're going to be really good down the line. So to me, I think that's a good example of just taking BPA rather than fit.
Yeah.
And
And then I was just also going to mention the Kings with Halliburton and Mitchell and Fox because everyone's like, why do they keep drafting guards? Which, yeah, they probably did draft really guard heavy, but it worked out because then they had a surplus and they were able to deal one of those for a really big position of need. Which
exactly, like it
back in the
worked.
draft, they might not have been able to draft somebody that would be nearly as good as Sabonis was. I mean, you would have to look back at it and see who was available. Would they be as good as player Sabonis? But you never know.
Yeah, like Tyrese fell to them. He was the best player available, clearly, because a lot of people thought he could have gone way earlier. So they took him, and people were like, "Oh, why are they drafting another guard when they've already got De'Aaron Fox as kind of their lead guy?" And now you've got two really solid guards. Yeah, you drafted Mitchell too, which was kind of a strange pick. There were some good players still on the board too, but I mean, Mitchell's good. But you look back and it was the right pick in the end because even though they had to decide between one of them, they, were the third seed. They got Sabonis, who's an all-star caliber player. Like it worked out. I mean, who knows if they're going to win a championship, but they're really good at this point. So I think that's kind of an example of why you should go best player available. We saw like the Warriors go for fit with James Wiseman when LaMelo Ball was right there. And sure, it would have been weird having LaMelo as another guard alongside Steph and Clay, but Clay ended up being hurt again that season. And also, imagine if you had LaMelo Ball as like a six man, and maybe eventually he wants to be traded. You have an incredible young talent there in LaMelo Ball. And if you've got to trade him because he doesn't want to come off the bench, then you trade him alongside like a salary and you get another star next to your like Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson core, Andrew Wiggins probably at that point, unless he's thrown in as part of the salary. Like it would have worked so much better if they just went with the best player available. And again, Miller could end up being the best player. It's just coming from the perspective of someone who thinks that Scoot is the second best guy in this draft. To me, it feels like that should have been the pick. And I just hope that they went with who they did think was BPA and not drafting just because of fit.
It's funny to think about it too with that is that they didn't want to draft LaMelo because they didn't want that like extra guard depth. Wow, you're drinking your water there really took you out of focus.
Yeah, that was crazy. Like, what just happened?
It became so blurry. I was like, oh no, what's happening to us?
I thought like my webcam was freaking out. Like, is it going to happen again? I don't know if this is on audio.
When I wanted to drink water.
Yeah, yours isn't really doing that. If this is on audio platforms, what just happened was I tried to drink my water and my webcam went completely out of focus for a moment. So, yeah, I don't know what was happening. It was like I was slipping into a void. But
what I was trying to say was, it's kind of funny to me because you were saying that they didn't want to draft LaMelo because of the weird guard fit, and then here they are trading for Chris Paul, which I feel like is even a weirder guard fit when you have Steph and Clay already. Which I get now, Chris Paul can come off the bench, but that's what LaMelo could have done in that case. It was just
and like imagine like this core group of guys with LaMelo involved, like the offense would be ridiculous if he was your six man for the first couple of years of his career. And maybe even like you take him and he's like, oh, I don't want to play this role for more than a season. Again, you just trade him. So I don't know. Again, hoping Brandon Miller is successful. It was not a great reaction from Hornets fans. They were having that whole thing at the arena where they invited a bunch of people to come watch the draft. Did you see the video of the Hornets mascot?
Yeah, he was he was set up like that.
So for those of you that haven't seen it, please go check this video out because it's one of the funniest videos I've ever seen. It's going to be an incredible reaction meme for so long. But when the Hornets were having their in-arena draft party, up on like the Jumbotron, they announced that Brandon Miller was the pick, and you could hear Hornets fans oddly going like, oh, and the Hornets mascot like falls over, like he just like drops, like his head falls. And you know how absurd a pick has to be in one person's mind for a mascot to break character like that. Like you got the Hornet mascot to nearly fall to his knees in the arena.
I feel like they would pay the mascot too. Like, hey man, you need to hype up the people with who we pick. Like that's part of your
Yeah,
job is to be a hype man. And the mascot said, "Screw it, man. I'm
he just
so
couldn't do
down
it.
bad with this pick that
Maybe
I'm
he
just."
bet. Maybe he bet on Scoot going 2, and he couldn't control it in the moment. The parlay was too much. But I don't know, man. It's
Mhm.
it's a really funny video. Again, I really hope Brandon Miller succeeds, but it's gonna be so funny, especially looking back, if Brandon Miller becomes like an all-star type of player. When we look back on that video of the Hornets mascot like falling over, it's gonna be a really funny video to look back on. And it honestly kind of feels like a 2K storyline where, in fact, there was a 2K storyline. I think it was this past one where you get drafted over like your rival to the team that you end up going to, and the fans are so disappointed. They're like, why didn't we take this guy over you? And being 2K my career, you end up averaging like 50 points per game and you win, all these awards. And they're like, oh, okay, you were the right pick. So maybe it's a similar situation. But man, there was a bunch of crazy reactions from Hornets fans on the timeline.
I'm saying, man. Oh man, they're coming for you for that take.
Yeah.
You hear the
Yeah.
sirens in the back, man.
Yeah. For those that
Brandon
don't know,
Miller and his people are coming for you, man.
Yeah, I'm in New York City for those of you that didn't know. So if you hear sirens or random noises, there also, if we ever record an episode late at night, there is someone who just screams. Like I think it's the next building over. I don't know if they're outside or inside, but there's someone who just screams around like 1, 2 a.m. most
He
nights.
still does
So
that?
not too much recently, but like every now and again they do. There was one day actually not too long ago where it was like mid-afternoon and they just started screaming. And I was like, oh, they were getting an early start on it. So I don't know, man. I don't know what it's about. I don't know why the screaming happens, and the fact that it keeps happening over and over again. Like maybe it's a musical performance thing. I did hear one time like a similar voice singing, so maybe they're like an opera person. I don't know. That's my only guess. I've never been to an opera, but anyways, staying on the draft topic, we're going to talk about some of our favorite picks now. We're not going to go through every selection because this would take forever. So we're just going to go ahead and go through some of our favorites. I mean, right off the bat for me, Scoot Henderson at 3 is tremendous value for the Blazers. Again, I thought he was the second best player in the draft. I think they should rebuild. They should start this thing over. And there was actually just a report right before we started from, I think it's Sean Hyken is the Blazers reporter, that Dame was whenever I see stuff about the Blazers, his name is somewhat attached. So I'm guessing he's pretty plugged in. His bio says independent coverage for Portland Trailblazers. So he says that Dame and his people were not thrilled that Portland used the pick. And this was kind of the crux of the whole draft, where if Miller went 2, it felt like we could see some drama at 3, maybe like a star trade, because that pick becomes more valuable, seemingly with Scoot Henderson being higher on a lot of teams' draft boards, especially if you can get him at the 3rd overall pick rather than having to trade with Charlotte all the way up to 2, which is a more valuable selection. So there was the drama, like if Brandon Miller's taking a 2, do they trade the pick? Do they keep it? They ended up keeping it and just taking Scoot Henderson. And it feels like that kind of angles towards a rebuild, which I've been very vocal about saying that I think they should rebuild. And if you can rebuild starting around a core of Scoot, I almost said Shaedon Henderson, Shaedon Sharpe, and Anthony Simons. Like you get those 3 guys to start your rebuild, plus the surplus of assets you would get for Dame. That's an incredible way to begin a new era in your franchise. Absolutely. So I think ultimately this was the right decision. If it pushes Dame out to ask for a trade, honestly, that's best for both sides.
Yeah, it's almost like the Blazers are at the point to where they're like, Dame's not going to want out unless we make this such an awkward situation for him, and like just not.
And I don't know if you saw his number. Scoot's wearing 00.
That's so funny.
So it's almost like he now has not the exact same number, obviously, but he has 00 while Dame has 0. He's a point guard. He's supposed to be like this fantastic guy. It's like, could Dame leave? Could he not? It does feel like one of those relationships where someone's like, I don't know how to get out of this, and they like just do all this egregious stuff to try and force the other person to break up with them. Like, I don't know if that's
was there some like Portland executive that was like, yeah, dude, definitely you should pick number 00, like Scoot. We'll throw in a little signing bonus for you.
Yeah, pick 00, make it even more awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know, man. To me, Scoot falling them to 3 feels like a sign from the basketball gods that they should blow this thing up.
Absolutely. Speaking from a sign from the basketball gods, I'm going to talk about one of my favorite picks. Mm-hmm. So while Connor was doing his live stream, back home, I was watching the draft with my boy Matt. Matt, if you're watching, I love you, man. and he's a huge Miami Heat fan. So obviously, I was watching a lot of hoops with him for the finals and stuff, and we get texts from him every day about, just complaining about the undrafted players or Pat Riley sleeping again, or the crazy stuff the Heat are known for. And when the pick was coming up, he really wanted Cam Whitmore, who somehow fell. So he got very optimistic, hoping that maybe they would pick Whitmore because, he thought they really need, more players on the wing because, they have the guards, they have Bam. We just need more wings and preferably people with size, and that can rebound the ball and play next to Bam. That's what they need.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, is there anyone you don't want? And he said, there's one player I do not want. And it was Jaime Jaquez Jr., who's
legend.
Who they picked. And when I tell you, my man fell to his knees. Have you seen that Hornets video? It was the same exact thing, except it was a grown man, not in a mascot suit, on my couch.
Yeah, I was doing my draft live stream, and he sends in the group chat of me, Ryan, and him. Maybe we'll get Matt on the podcast at one point, but he sends in the group chat of the three of us. I was like, Matt, how do you like the pick? And he was like, I'm so angry, or something along those lines. Like, he was so upset.
But all his anger aside, and I know he wasn't really on the big board or anything, if he can turn out to be the player he's profiled to be, I actually do like it a little bit for the Heat because he screams Heat culture, which I think is hilarious because I was reading, his player bio. They were doing the player comps on TV and stuff. And they're like, he just works so hard. He's always, putting attention to detail. He's always hustling, always picking up his teammates, a great attitude. I'm like, I swear the Heat bred this man in a lab and let him go to UCLA for a couple of years to get him to this point. But I mean,
he does feel like he fits that type of culture where he's one of those hustle guys. He's kind of overlooked at times as well. Like a lot of players on that Heat team, a lot of the undrafted guys, like he does feel like a player that fits what they're trying to do over there in Miami.
I think he's a little bit more NBA ready too than like, some other people that might've been on the board. That might've been another reason why they went with him. Yeah. As Connor fades again.
I don't know what's going on with the webcam.
But I mean, I don't know. I kind of like it. I mean, it could have been worse, but I don't know. A big that can, score the ball, rebound, and I saw he had some really good defensive stats too. So, and good attitude. His favorite player is apparently Jimmy Butler. He's taking pictures with the NYPD with holding up Heat jerseys. So, I mean, the dude seems like he's pretty fun. And at the very least, we'll have an entertaining guy in Miami. I think at the very least, that's what we'll get.
They'll have a player who was drafted.
They will. Yeah, we can
finally of a change.
One less player in the rotation that's undrafted, if there's any positive.
Yeah. So I also think the pick's fine. I know a lot of people hate it. I've seen people grading the Heat's draft an F for taking Jaime Jaquez. I think it's fine. We'll see what ends up happening. He's not like one of the highest ceiling guys in the draft, but he does feel like someone that could contribute right away for Miami. And they were just in the finals. They're trying to compete now. So I don't hate the pick whatsoever. And honestly, I mean, he might even get traded at some point for a star if one becomes available. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a fine pick. We talked about Scoot. I guess I'll talk for a bit about Cason Wallace, who ends up going to OKC. Thunder legend. Shout out to him. Really excited to see him play over here. Great defensive guard. He was one of the guys I liked the most in this entire draft class. I think I put a tweet out like literally 2 days before the draft. And I was even texting some guys in this chat I have for the Thunder podcast that I do, Topic Thunder podcast, if you want to check that out. So we were talking about like some of our favorite prospects. And I was like, I really like Cason Wallace. I'm not sure if it's Cason or Cason Wallace. Sam Presti was saying it one way, and one of our other like assistant GMs was saying it a different way. So I am probably going to go back and forth.
This is like a Shay Shy thing all over again.
Yeah, I'm going to go back and forth a little bit until I have it like completely down. But I think it's Cason. He also said I think he said that it doesn't really matter. Like you can say Cason, Cason. I'm getting myself confused now. It doesn't matter.
Like a French person saying croissant.
Just croissant. Like put a lot of emphasis on the on. So yeah, Cason Wallace, great defender. I think he adds great to this guard rotation. Some Thunder fans were upset saying that, we have a bunch of guards already, but we don't really have a backup guard set in stone at this point. Trey Mann could potentially play that role, but he had kind of a down sophomore season after a really promising rookie one. Maybe he bounces back and ends up still getting that role, but I don't think it, you've got to take the player that you feel like is the best available again. And I do think he fits too with what this team is trying to build, which is kind of this defensive identity. We've got Lou Dort, we've got him, we've got Chet, J-Dub and Shea both showed some really solid defensive moments this year. I think Giddey had a better defensive season too. He's still got some work to go, but I liked some of what I saw from him. We were one of the better defensive teams in the league at times. I think we could be pretty soundly a top 10 defense this upcoming season. And it feels like an identity that we're trying to build. Plus he adds on more to the Thunder's whole ideology of everyone can really handle the ball and make plays. I love the pick with him. We traded up from 12 to 10 to select him, taking on Davis Bertans' contract from the Mavericks, a trade that I really like. I like the idea of using your salary cap to move up a couple of spots, take a guy that you want. There were rumors that the Raptors were trying to jump us to get him at 11. So I'm glad that we were able to go ahead and make that happen. We get a player I really like. We use our salary cap, which we weren't going to use anyways. There are also some Thunder fans that were mad saying that now we're not going to have any cap space like Oklahoma City has ever attracted free agents before. So yeah, I really like that pick. I know, again, I'm biased, but just genuinely like being 100% real. Before the draft, like a couple days before, I was telling people that he was one of my favorite prospects.
Low key, man. If Davis Bertans can remember shoot, are you guys keeping him? You guys haven't cut him yet, have you?
I don't imagine we'll cut him. I imagine we'll keep his money on the books.
I was gonna say if you really could actually shoot the ball, I feel like OKC really is actually kind of lacking.
I mean, that's
shooting.
That's also like, getting some shooting at a guy who's like, what, he's like 6'9", I think.
Like a lot, you got like, I know Muscala is more of like a 4 or 5, but I mean, that was kind of the role he played for y'all a lot of the time. Just you guys were desperate for some shooting and come off the bench, get some threes. Yeah, like I know Bertans pretty washed at this point, but
yeah, I mean, he shot 39% from deep this past season. Like, he shot really well from the outside.
Yeah, and you guys have some good defenders to, hide him.
Yeah. The defense isn't great. I don't expect him to play like 20, 15 minutes a game. Like, if we need a couple shots, he can come in for a few minutes every now and again, just provide us with some spacing. I don't hate the idea of bringing a guy like him just to kind of see what he does. If he doesn't end up working out, then whatever. If it ends up working out and he's actually solid for us, we could always bring him back. So I think it's a great trade. I really like what Sam Presti did there. I also like what the Mavericks did, getting his money off the books, opening up a full mid-level exception. They got Derek Lively at pick 12, gives them a big. I also like that pick a lot for them. So yeah, I thought that trade was pretty beneficial for both sides. And coming from a biased Thunder fans perspective, A+ pick for us.
My only devil's advocate would be just, I feel like with Chet coming off that, pretty gruesome injury and the fact you guys don't have a lot of big depth as it is, I actually really expected there to be a big pick with like either a 4 or a 5.
The big problem is like there weren't a lot of bigs.
Yeah, that's what I was going to follow up with. Like,
yeah,
if you had a little bit higher of a pick and you were able to snag Jarris Walker or something, which another one of my favorite picks from the draft. Pacers really nailed that one in my opinion. They really needed someone that fit his profile with their guard. They have all-star level guard, defensive player of the year type of center. So get a wing. There you go. So I was really happy with that pick also for them. But kind of going back to what you were saying, they're just like, other than Lively, which the Mavericks ended up picking, there really wasn't a lot of centers in that range of picks that were.
It was
really
it was Lively. It was Vic way towards the top. Probably the next one was like James Najee was a big who ends up going a little bit
later.
Wasn't
a big centers draft.
No, it wasn't a big draft. And there were a lot of Thunder fans that were mad that we took a guard and not a big. But again, there were not really that many bigs. I don't like Derek Lively a lot for what we're trying to do. And, Chet's going to be the center. Some people are probably kind of worried about, I know some people are worried about like his frame and they want just bigger bodies. That's something we can always address. If we really, really want a center, we could always sign one for probably like a minimum in free agency if we needed to.
Dwayne Dedmon's a free agent, I hear. So is Montrezl Harrell.
Yep, both Sixer legends there. And we also have like Jay Will, who's going to come off the bench for Chet too. So he gives us, he's not a ton of size. Like you think he's 6'9", 6'10". So he's not like the most, he doesn't have the most height, but I still think it works out. Like we're going to be fine. Big wasn't really that much of a need like people are making it out to be. So I love the Cason Wallace pick. We talked a little bit about Cam Whitmore. He falls to the 20th overall pick. The Rockets end up getting him when there was rumors in a couple of mock drafts that he could go 4 to the Rockets. So they get him as well as Amen Thompson. I like the idea of getting that kind of franchise leading guard with Amen Thompson. I think he's going to be really good there with his playmaking, the athleticism. I mean, the athleticism of him, Jalen Green, as well as Cam Whitmore, who's also an athletic freak. You put the 3 of them there on the court. It's going to be super fun to watch.
He's pretty athletic too.
Yeah, Tari Eason's an athletic player. Like, it's going to be really fun. Rockets basketball, I think, got way more fun in this offseason, especially when you think about where it was last year, where it was like unbearable to watch at times. It's like if Şengün wasn't out there making plays, or, there were some nights where Jalen Green was going off. If it wasn't one of those nights, it was a complete disaster, it felt like. So I think they got a lot more fun. And, Cam Whitmore, there's concerns. Apparently, he didn't interview super well.
That don't
There's
matter to
also
the Rockets, man. Think about all the players in their team. You really think they care about interviews on that team?
yeah, like if you've got so much young talent over there on your team, and you can take a swing on a player there at 20, even if they're it ends up where the interviews weren't great and the individual workouts weren't great, and there is injury issues. Like if all those things add up and he doesn't end up working out, you've still got a million really talented young players over there. So you can afford to take a swing like that on a guy in Cam Whitmore at pick 20. We'll never know, or we might know at some point, but like the exact reasoning or what exactly caused him to fall. But I mean, why not take a swing there at pick 20 when he falls that far to you?
I agree. And I think you want to mention the Jazz and the Wolves picks real quick too.
Yeah. Taylor Hendricks, I like a lot at 9. The defense of him and Walker Kessler is going to be super fun to watch. They also got Keontae George, Bryce Sensabaugh, 2 players that I think are also going to be fun players over there for them. A bit more scoring focused, especially Bryce Sensabaugh, who's just a straight bucket getter from the get-go. Leonard Miller, I like the value of him going to the Wolves. I think it was pick 32. He could have been a pick like in the mid to late teens, maybe even in the 20s. Instead, they get him at the beginning of the second round, which I think is great. Also, Trace Jackson Davis to the Warriors is another selection I really like. He could have gone a lot earlier. I thought he was going to be a first round pick, and they take him at like 56, I think it was. So, yeah, just a lot of great value across the board. Also, like Max Lewis a lot to the Lakers. He's a guy who just gets buckets, has a bunch of length. So, yeah, I thought there really isn't a team that I thought had a bad draft. A lot of people didn't like the Magic's draft, taking Anthony Black at 6 and also Jet Howard at 11. I like the offensive upside of Jet Howard. It is a bit clunky with all the guards that they have over there in Orlando.
I think they're going to make some deals, man.
They've got to make something. Like you have Cole Anthony, Markelle Fultz, Anthony Blacknell, and Jalen Suggs as your 4 guards. And Anthony Black plays a very similar role to Jalen Suggs in terms of being like kind of a defensive playmaking guard whose offense has some work to do, except Anthony Black's like a few inches taller. So I don't know. Maybe Jalen Suggs is on the move. Maybe it's Cole Anthony. But I do think they're probably going to make a trade or 2 before the season starts to kind of clear that up. Yeah. So overall, pretty good. If you've got any, if you want to hear anything about your team's favorite draft, go ahead and leave us a comment. We can go ahead and talk to you all about some of those. If there's any other players or teams we didn't address, I feel like most teams had a pretty good draft. Like there's really nobody that I think had a bad draft. Every year it feels like there's somebody. This year, I think every team did pretty solid too, really well.
I agree. The one pick I was a little interested in was I forget how to pronounce his name, but the Wemby's teammate.
Bilal Coulibaly.
Yeah, I knew that there was like another top prospect on his team, but then when they pulled up his stats in his house, I was like, oh man, this guy's a project. But if anyone is going to take on like an absolute project right now, the Wizards, I feel like are the perfect place for that.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, they're starting their rebuild. They've traded Bradley Beal, Kristaps. They, traded Chris Paul, who they got in the Beal trade for. Jordan Poole, so he's kind of a younger player too. Like, yeah, why not take a swing on a guy like that? He was someone that a lot of people thought could go to the Thunder at 12. It felt like he was probably going to be the guy that ends up going to us, but he shot up draft boards like kind of late in the process. The Spurs were apparently even thinking about trying to trade back up into the lottery somehow to get him to put next to Victor Wembanyama in San Antonio, which would have been really fun.
Awesome.
But yeah, I like the idea of taking a swing on a guy like Coulibaly when you're, beginning your rebuild like that. And if he pans out, like this is a great first selection for them.
One more draft thing I want to bring up is Keegan Murray's brother. Was his name Chris?
Chris Murray, yeah.
Him getting picked 1 pick before the Kings. So at least we could have at least had the anticipation. I don't know if he was even on the Kings draft board, if it's come out that the Kings might have been looking at him. Mm-hmm. But that would have at least had the anticipation, or it would have been a funny meme like, oh, he was right there and the Kings just didn't take him.
Yeah,
he got swooped right before.
Yeah, literal pick right before the Kings run the clock.
Yeah.
Blazers end up scooping him up, which also the Blazers getting Chris Murray. I like that pick too. Whether they start a rebuild or try to compete now, I think he's going to be a fine player either way. So yeah, I mean, not the draft. What'd you say?
I thought that was funny.
And that was so rude. There were so many mock drafts I saw with him just going to the Kings because they're like, this makes sense.
People just being lazy. They're like, they could use another one.
All the draft comparisons for Chris Murray were Keegan Murray.
That was so funny too when they showed. I was like, so here's my thing though, because Keegan Murray was like a consensus like top 5 pick, and I know he was a little bit better than Chris is, but like it's just hilarious how you're comparing a guy that was picked in the 20s to a guy that was like a consensus top 5 pick. I get that they're brothers, but they're twins, right?
Yeah, they're twins. I
I
think.
just think it's hilarious how they couldn't have done
Man.
anything else, or they could have at least picked like who Keegan was compared to when he got picked.
Hmm.
You know.
Rather than just being like these twin brothers are the same player.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but yeah, draft was pretty good. I was a big fan. Did a live stream during it. For some reason, my mic audio was messed up like the whole time. I really don't know why. I tried to figure it out. I think it was just YouTube's live streaming being weird. So
Come on,
yeah,
YouTube, what you doing?
it was so annoying, man. I was like, people kept being like, "Oh, you're cutting out," and I was like, "Is the audio really that bad?" And I pulled it up on my phone, and it sounded like I was speaking through a tin can on
Oh
my whole
man,
live stream, which was really annoying. So yeah, but I definitely want to do more live streams. I think I'm gonna live stream for when free agency starts, like when it opens up. I think it's the 30th. I think it's in like 5 days for when.
what day of the week is that?
It is a Friday because I was gonna say we could live stream together, but I know you work. So
What time does it start?
let me see if I can find that real quick.
Late in the afternoon, I could pull that, but
NBA free agencies. I feel like it typically started at like, it's 6 p.m. Eastern. So
might be able to swing that.
so maybe we could do a joint live stream on my channel or something like that
That'd be cool.
to kind of cover that. Just talk about free agency.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So
5 days.
We got a lot. I'll transition us real quick. We got a lot of requests about young cores. Like a lot of people were asking us about different teams, and then Thunder Chats, which is one of Connor's, podcast homies, he brought up that could we rank them, and so I put what I thought. Do you think those 6, Connor, are probably the best ones? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, those are some of the best ones. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I guess you could also add like kind of like Memphis to that list if we're counting them.
I was trying to stick away from teams that were kind of like in the midst of competing right now.
That's fair. Yeah,
Because
I
in
guess
that case, you could say Boston has the best young core because they have Tatum and Brown, who are both, still
That's
in the
fair.
mid-20s. You know what I mean? So I was trying to stick with more people that are still developing. But
that makes sense. Yeah, I think it's a good list then. I mean, I never mind. I was going to say Cleveland too, but they're also kind of in the midst of competing. So,
because if we were going by that, I would think Cleveland, Memphis, Boston. I feel like they would all kind of be.
Yeah. So keep this in mind. We're going to be talking about young cores. We're mostly talking about like the non-playoff teams, like borderline playoff teams when we're talking about this. Again, Boston, Memphis, like Cleveland, those teams kind of make sense for being like in the best conversations when you think about it. But this is kind of just talking about, young cores of
exactly
teams that are trying to take that next step.
Yeah. So it's starting from the bottom. I have the Hornets, Wizards, and Utah. The Hornets mainly because you have LaMelo and you have Brandon Miller. But outside of that, there's not really a ton that excites me. Like they have some nice young pieces. Like JT Thor kind of lit up at the end. Kai Jones, when he's not shooting 0 from 10 from 3, sometimes has some cool dunks.
Yeah. And, Mark Williams when they finally gave him playing time at the end of the year, like Mark Williams, we don't know what's going on with James Bouknight. Dennis Smith Jr. made a resurgence this season.
Do we even call him young anymore? Isn't he like 30?
I think he's 26.
It just feels like he's been in the league forever.
It really has felt like he's been in the league forever. He is 25, turns 26 before next season. So,
but I mean,
it did feel like he was like 26, turning 27 though.
Like it's a good list of players, and I guess you get is PJ Washington's not a free agent, is he?
I think he might be a restricted free agent. Let's check his contract.
They bring PJ back and you throw him in there. Like it's not a bad young core. It's just outside LaMelo, we don't know what to expect out of Brandon Miller completely yet. It's just not like as good as all the other ones, in my opinion, where there's like at least 4 or 5 players that could have a really high ceiling.
Yeah, so PJ is a restricted free agent. Yeah, and they might bring back Miles Bridges, I guess. So I guess if you want to consider him part of the core, that whole situation's weird.
We'll address that when that.
I guess we can talk about that if that happens. But we'll see what ends up happening. I do think it's a fun young core. Again, like you said, we've got to figure out what happens with Brandon Miller. How does he end up panning out? Of course, you've got LaMelo Ball there. It's kind of like already a young all-star. He has dealt with some injuries. But yeah, they're in that weird spot where they've got young players that are fun, but at the same time, like they've still got Gordon Hayward on the roster. Terry Rozier is still there as well. Like some of these older veteran guys from when they were trying to compete a while ago. Yeah, they finally got rid of Plumlee after having him be the starting center for like 3 years. I'm glad LaMelo finally is not having Plumlee as his starting center. So yeah,
it's got some potential. I just kind of had them lower than some of the other teams, and then I think Wizards and Utah are kind of down there too. Utah, like you said, had a really good draft, but like if we're not counting who they just drafted, like it's just pretty much like, Ochai and Walker Kessler is really like they're young.
I guess it depends if we're talking about Lauri Markkinen's what, like 25, 26 at this point.
Yeah. So I mean, you could throw him in there too, but I just think is that they have a chance. I feel like to really shoot up if like all those guys progress and they're all their drafted players pan out to be really well. I think they could really shoot up this list. But as of now, I kind of have them below the other teams. And then the Wizards, they just kind of.
I was just gonna say Lauri's 26.
Okay.
Sexton is interesting. He didn't play it like he played a decent role this past season, but it wasn't as much as people thought. I guess they've still got Taylor Horton Tucker. Whose number got taken by I think Taylor Hendricks took his number. So I guess
that's how you have no authority on the team.
no pull on the team.
When you were supposed to be like $100 million player that the Lakers wouldn't trade for anybody, now you got young guys that never played a minute on the NBA court taking your number. And it's not even like
the THT hype was crazy for a minute.
Yeah. Man.
Yeah, but
the
Jazz
on that.
The Jazz are in a good spot. I like Lowry's good. I mean, it depends again what we're considering young core for the team, but yeah, I mean, I think they're in a good spot. I know we're going to talk about the Wizards, who are a bit behind these teams because they don't have like an established all-star type talent. But I do think there's a good chance to shout out kind of some of the stuff they've been doing. Like, they brought in Jordan Poole for Chris Paul, which I think is a great haul to bring back. It's no risk. If Jordan Poole isn't great this upcoming season like he wasn't last year, then, whatever. He comes, hangs out, gets some buckets in DC for a bit, and then you don't end up re-signing him at the end of this, I think, 4-year contract. Right now, if he does end up being good, then you've got him under contract till he turns like 27, 28 years old. He'll be in the midst of his prime. So maybe you're able to bring him back to stay in DC. Bilal Coulibaly is going to be interesting. They've got guys like Denny Avdia. They have Daniel Gafford, who I think is a little bit too old at this point to be considered young core. I don't know how old he is.
Top seven in win shares, bro.
That's true. He's in top 7 in win shares for second round picks. I know this stat now.
Yes, sir.
Corey Kispert, Johnny Davis. We'll see what ends up happening with him. It's a lot of question marks over there in Washington.
There's a lot of high ceiling players,
Yeah, or could have high ceiling, but we haven't seen those flashes.
We haven't been given a reason to think they'd have a high ceiling.
Yeah, so I think the Wizards are. I love what they've done to start
Absolutely.
this rebuild. By the way, I've seen a lot of people kind of dunking on them for some of the trades that they've made, but the full details of the Bradley Beal trade came out. They got a haul for Bradley Beal. They got, I think it was 4 first-round pick swaps, 6 second-round picks, plus Landry Shamet and Chris Paul. Maybe they flip Landry Shamet to someone else, but they already flipped Chris Paul. So it's those 4. Yeah, they got a Chris Hall. So they got 4 first-round pick swaps. That was good. That was good. 4 first-round pick swaps, 6 second-round picks, plus a first-round pick from the Warriors, and another second-round pick, plus Ryan Rollins and Patrick Baldwin Jr., who were both, recently draft picks for the Warriors, as well as Jordan Poole. So they got a big haul from Chris Paul, and the Porzingis trade doesn't end up getting them too much, but he had a player option, so he could just walk anyways. I think they've done a good job. Tyus Jones is also interesting over there as a point guard.
My favorite young core, Tyus Jones.
Yeah, I didn't realize how old he was. He's 27 at this point. I really thought he was like 25, 26.
I thought he was even older, to be honest. I would have said he was like
28,
29.
Oh, I thought he was a bit younger for some reason. But for some reason, I think those Timberwolves days that he had just don't register in my mind. I just think of him being in Memphis.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. But those teams are interesting. They've got some solid young pieces here and there. I know we've got a list of some of these other squads as well. There are I nearly dropped my phone if on the YouTube video you just saw me flinch. It was on my lap and it nearly fell off. I swore it was. But we got the Pacers also here on this list alongside teams like the Spurs, the Pistons. The Spurs, just by virtue of having Wemby, I feel like deserve to be kind of on here. The Pistons, the Magic, the Rockets, and the Thunder as some of the most interesting young cores. Is there one in particular you put towards the top? I know who I would put towards the top, but I'm also biased. So I'm curious to hear what you have to say.
So it's kind of tough because a team like the Pacers, I feel like kind of gets lifted a bit because they do have an established all-star in Halliburton.
Mm-hmm.
And the Thunder have Shea.
Yeah.
So I feel like those 2 teams should automatically get kind of lifted for that. But if we're going as a cohesive unit,
mm-hmm. I also feel like for the Magic, he's not one yet, but I feel like Paolo's pretty clearly going to be an all-star type talent. The Rockets have a couple of guys who could be, but we haven't seen that yet.
So I would go Thunder, Magic, Pistons as my top 3 young cores if I had to pick.
You go Pistons. Did you mean Pacers or are you going Pistons?
Pistons.
You going Pistons? Okay. I think the Pistons belong in that conversation too. I mean, Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey. You've got Jalen Duren. They've not got Asor Thompson, who's over there. James Wiseman looked pretty solid in the minutes that he played too, so maybe he's able to bounce back. Beef Stew, shout out to him. So yeah, I mean the Pistons. I feel like people forget
he kind of hoops too.
Isaiah Livers does. He's one of those, like, if you're a casual fan, you'll be like, who the heck is this guy? And then if you're one of like the basketball sickos like we are and watch a ton of hoops, you'll be like, this guy's sick. So yeah, I think that's a solid top few. I'm biased again. I think the Thunder have the best young core. You know, we've got an established all-star in Shea. Giddy is incredible. J-Dub was in Rookie of the Year conversations this past year. Chet Holmgren was the second overall pick. I mean, we nearly made the playoffs this past season without our second overall pick, who provides rim protection and floor spacing. Like, we really didn't have a center. So to me, I think we're the best young core at this point. Assuming you are considering Shea as being part of that young core. I know he's 25 right now, if I'm right. So he's kind of teetering around that edge. I feel like usually it's like 25 and under people consider like young core. So I'm biasly, I think us, but I do think like the Rockets, Magic, Pistons, you mentioned the Pacers with Halliburton, Mathurin, Jarris Walker now, which immediately I think boosts them too. I think those guys are really solid, but also with the Pacers, it feels like it's kind of those guys, and then they're still trying to figure out the rest. Like Miles Turner's a great player, but he's not really like a young core member anymore. So they've got like Chris Duarte. Aaron Nesmith. I do like Aaron Nesmith a lot. Lakers heartbreaker from earlier on in this season. Lakers fans freaking out in the timeline being like, who is Aaron Nesmith, as he hits a game winner on them. So I feel like it's hard to rank these young cores. And like you talk about the Spurs, they've got Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Sohan. Now they've got Victor Wembanyama, who like, again, immediately kind of like elevates the young core substantially, because I think he's going to be like an all-star type talent from day one. I don't know if he'll be an all-star, but I think the impact is going to be huge right away. So it almost feels like they belong in that conversation. For me, it's like the Thunder 1, and then I think it's almost interchangeable between a bunch of those squads, like 2, 3, 4, however far you're going to rank them. But yeah, I mean, it's cool to see all these like rebuilding teams that have been going for a while, like reach this point where we're talking about like how special their cores can be.
I think one thing I'm looking for the Rockets and the Pistons is for one of their players, because like you said, I think Paolo's going to take that leap. I think he'll be in all-star conversations this year.
Yeah.
I think the Rockets and the Pistons need a player to emerge to that category, I think, to really get them into that like young core upper echelon. Because I kind of have, like, I think I have Thunder Magic as my 1 and 2. And then it's kind of between, I said Pistons, but I think Pistons and Rockets are kind of close. It's just either Cade, Ivy, if Duran has a crazy leap, or if Thompson just comes right out the gate and is awesome. I guess either Thompson.
Yeah.
But I just think one of those two teams need a player to jump to that Shea, Halliburton, Paolo tier. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they need someone who's like
that jump. I think Cade,
who's like that all-star. Yeah, we could see Cade maybe make that type of leap. It might be hard because he didn't play much last season, but maybe Cade does become that type of player where it's like, okay, he's going to be an all-star, if not this year, then probably next year. Like, that's how I feel about Paolo, where he might not be an all-star this upcoming season, but I feel pretty comfortable in saying. And I think after his first season, I would have said the same about Cade, but off the injury, I'm a bit like just waiting and seeing to make sure that everything's
Cade
fine.
was really slow his first half, his first year too. He was not great. He really picked up the second half.
The second half it was like, oh, okay, this is the guy that was the consensus number 1 overall pick. Like, here he is, which is normal for a lot of rookies. So yeah, I mean, let us know who y'all think the best young core is. I guess, like I think we're both going with OKC here, which makes my heart happy. There's only one team on this list that has an All NBA first teamer who was top 5 in MVP conversations this past season. So gonna go ahead and give my shout Isaiah Livers,
Jalen Green. No,
yeah, Jalen Green is also one of those guys like him and Şengün. I think this is the year where one of them should. The Rockets, and I think Rockets fans should look for one of them to establish themselves as like, okay, this guy is going to be an all-star down the line type of player. And I think they've both shown those flashes. It's just about building the consistency.
Absolutely, especially Jalen Green, man. If he could be like 75% consistent, he could be in that level. It's just the shooting splits sometimes for him are nuts, man, and the shot selection. And he can hit some crazy shots. There's no denying it. He just doesn't look like. I'm not gonna say he doesn't look like a leader per se, but he just doesn't look like yeah, that's our dude that's gonna carry us. I don't know, man.
And I think part of that is also like the Rocket situation has been weird the past few years.
Yeah,
Like
with the coaching
you
and
with
personnel.
it's I don't know. It's been kind of a mess. Like it's not one of those rebuilding situations where you're like, okay, there's like a light at the end of the tunnel that we like can see. It's been kind of like, okay, what's going on here? I mean, again, Şengün has established himself as a really fun talent. Like he's, I would say, their best player at the moment. So if he continues to build on that, if Jalen Green finds some consistency where there are those nights where he'll drop 30 points and it'll be on really efficient shooting. There are some nights where he'll have like 20, but it's on like 4 of like 19 shooting with some free throws and stuff like that. Like if he finds the balance between those two and finds that consistency, he's going to be incredible in this league. And I still think he's going to, but it's just a matter of when it's going to happen that kind of, keeps things up in the air for right now with them.
Call it now. Who wins the summer league?
Who wins the summer league? I really want to say OKC, but I don't think we play our guys the whole time. I don't like if we were playing our guys the whole time, like Chet, J-Dub, I think is going to play a little bit of summer league, and then he'll probably only play in the Utah one. I don't think he'll show up in Vegas. But like Chet, Keontae Ousmane Dieng, for those of you that don't know who I'm talking about when I say Keontae Johnson, our second round pick. Yeah, people are probably so confused when I said Ooze if you don't know who I'm talking about. But yeah, I mean, we've got a great young group of guys there, Kassan Wallace as well. So I would say us, again, biasly, but if we're kind of going outside the box, I mean, depending on how much Wemby plays, the Spurs could be really interesting. They've got a bunch of young guys on that roster. Who are some other? I know the Blazers won this past year. I mean, Scoot. I think Scoot could do it if they ran.
If Sharp plays, Scoot plays.
Yeah, that could be a hell of a duo. I think Trendon Watford was like Summer League MVP last year, or he was like in that conversation. So if he plays again, although I don't think he will play at this point, he's kind of played a few times, I think. Yeah. So I think the Rockets aren't honestly. If I'm going non-Thunder, I think the Rockets are an interesting pick with Amin Thompson. If Jabari Smith goes out there and gets some reps too.
I think the Rockets are my pick. We're gonna be my pick.
They'll probably still have like Ty Washington. I'd imagine he plays out there. They could have like Usman Garuba just go out there and get some reps too. Josh Christopher could go out there and get some reps as well.
He was kind of a dog in summer league last year, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it was last year. Whichever year. Actually, yeah, he was a second year player last year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, second year player. So he was probably out there. I was at summer league. I don't know how I don't remember this, but also going to be going to summer league again. If any of y'all are there, let me know. And we can go ahead and meet up. Ryan won't because he is lame and hates every single one of you. Okay.
That's crazy, man.
We can move on now to some NBA news. I guess we can start off with the trades that happened, the Porzingis one. We talked a bit about the Jordan Poole, Chris Paul trade. I guess we can kind of just wrap that up. Again, I think the Wizards are a big winner of that trade. They get some assets for a 38-year-old Chris Paul who didn't fit their timeline whatsoever. If Jordan Poole becomes really good, awesome. You got a young player for basically nothing. If he doesn't end up panning out, then whatever. You're in the midst of a rebuild.
You're not paying anyone anyways.
Exactly. It's a completely risk-free type of scenario there for the Wizards. So I think they're a big winner. I think Chris Paul fits solidly over there in Golden State. He's not going to fix like the big issue of the defense, which is really inconsistent. I do think his playmaking is going to help some of the young players on that roster be a bit more consistent because now you've got a bench playmaker. It's also, I think, having Chris Paul as that kind of steadying force will help negate some of the issues you have in the non-Steph minutes where when Steph's off the court, they look like a disaster at some moments. So I do think he helps negate that too. They've got to do some more work. I think they need to round out the rotation, probably with some veteran guys. If I were them, I'd look to trade either Moses Moody or Jonathan Kuminga, at least one of them.
Absolutely, I agree.
To upgrade the roster. So we'll see. I mean, it could end up being a big mistake, but also the benefit is that Chris Paul has a completely non-guaranteed contract next year. So if he doesn't work out, you just cut him and you have like $30 million in cap space freed.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's pretty much nothing else to that. I mean, the fact that Chris Haynes had the whole world convinced that he was just going to get cut for nothing, and that the Wizards turned him into Jordan Poole and assets is like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, definitely wouldn't expect that. I mean, you could argue that Chris Paul by himself got more than KP and Beal did. I know Chris Paul was one of the players he got for Beal, but
yeah,
you know what I mean? So
it's a great like rerouting of assets because Chris Paul, when we're heading to this offseason, everybody's like, oh, the Suns are going to trade or cut Chris Paul or something. And instead he's involved in the Bradley Beal trade. Everyone's like, whoa, like they got him for Bradley Beal and Landry Shamet. And we found out later the pick situation, which is like a lot more substantial. And then the Wizards turned Chris Paul into Jordan Poole. So I think they've done a great job so far. They also had the Porzingis trade, which happened twice. We had the first one with him going to Boston, which is where he ends up going now. But you had Malcolm Brogdon going over to the Clippers. You had Marcus Morris, Amir Coffey, and I think a first and a second round pick going to the Wizards. It was like this 3-team like kind of circle. And the Celtics, getting Porzingis, he's like an amazing basketball fit over there. And it just made so much sense as a trade. And then it fell apart, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, this is actually going to happen." They had until midnight.
It was so fun that we had like an hour, and then I think
it was like a doomsday clock.
They're going to still try to get it done. So I was, I had work the next morning, and I wanted to go to bed. I was like, "Nah, this is too fun, man. I want to stay up and see what happens." And then I get a notification like 30 minutes later that Marcus Smart has been traded. I'm like, what? I'm so glad I stayed up for this.
That was the thing that broke everything. So I was recording my Thunder podcast at that moment, the pre-draft one, because it was the night before the draft. And we were, the whole time, like while we were talking about stuff, I was refreshing Twitter on the side, like I had my phone, and I was like refreshing, like, trying to find information. And then I saw the Shams tweet pull up on my timeline that said Marcus Smart was dealt, because we had learned that Kristaps was actually going to be traded, but we didn't know what the details were. And I saw Marcus Smart was traded, and Kristaps going to the Celtics. Obviously, he's the best player in this deal, and he's the one that's going to change everything for them. But Marcus Smart being traded almost feels like a bigger deal.
Absolutely.
Like he felt like a Celtics lifer. It felt like there was no way they would trade Marcus Smart. I'm stunned that they made that move. Like he was one of only 3 players that were still on their team. Have you seen this stat?
It was like one of 3 players since like 2014, drafted in 2014, still with their same team.
Yeah. Do you know who the other 2 are?
I saw the tweet, but I forget.
Okay. One of them is on your favorite team.
Joel Embiid.
Yep. Joel Embiid is one of them. And the other one is his arch nemesis.
Oh, Jokic.
Yep. Jokic and Embiid were the only 2 guys that had been on, and those are 2 MVP players. Mm-hmm. It's rare that you see guys stay on their team that long in the NBA with all the player movement. Marcus Smart had been there forever through everything, through all the conference finals runs, the finals run, and now he's gone. And I think he's going to be great over there in Memphis. Like, I like the idea of them bringing him in to kind of fill that Dylan Brooks role of like a high-level defender that's going to annoy the hell out of his opponents. I like the idea of that a lot. And he'll probably annoy his teammates a little bit less. The shot selection is also questionable at times with Marcus Smart, but it's better than what Dylan Brooks was doing. So, but I'm stunned Marcus Smart actually got traded.
Wasn't there a play, and I don't remember what game, I don't remember the moment. There was some play where Marcus Smart had the ball when it should have been Tatum, and then he made like an awful pass out of bounds or something like that. And do you know what I'm talking about? It wasn't like a really important game.
It's not coming to mind. The first thing that came to mind was against y'all when Brogdon passed the ball and he made like a terrible turnover. I think it was like Tobias Harris or something like that. Like that was the first thing that was coming to mind for me.
I don't think it was in the playoffs, but there was some game. And if you know what I'm talking about, please comment below. I'm going crazy. But I just vividly remember Marcus Smart getting the ball on the inbound. Everyone's like, why is it not going to Tatum or Brown? Why does Smart have it? And then he tried making some stupid pass and it went out of bounds with the shot clock going down and just did not work. And everyone's like, what is Smart doing?
I think I have an idea of what you're talking about, but I cannot picture what game it was.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I can't picture the specific moment. If y'all know, let us know down below. Or if it's like a Kevin Knox OKC situation from last podcast episode where I was, I guess, making it up, also let us know.
Yeah, I don't think I'm making it up. I think it happened, but
I believe you. Yeah. Kind of.
But I know somebody commented on our last podcast that I like making crazy trade ideas. I don't think I made anything even crazier than what Keith Pompey said the Sixers demanded for Tobias Harris from the Cavaliers.
Yeah.
So if you didn't see the tweet, and Keith Pompey, he's a cool dude. If you're watching this, Keith, which you're probably not, I respect what you do, man. But there's just some times where you put some stuff out there for my Sixers, and I'm like, what is he talking about? Like, is this really real? But he said that apparently Daryl Morey demanded Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen, and a pick for Tobias Harris's services, which I mean, maybe Daryl Morey was just kind of trolling. Like he's just kind of starting, at the top and then working your way down. Like you might as well start high. Obviously, they're never going to accept that. But it wouldn't even make any sense in the first place. Why would we demand that when center is our position of least need? Maybe one of them would be cool.
When you have the literal MVP at center,
yeah,
and you would get
for an expiring Tobias Harris.
Yeah, man. I don't know. It's a very interesting report, and people are freaking out on Twitter because of it. Like, what is Daryl Morey talking about? maybe Keith Pompey's right, or maybe some source duped him. I don't know, but it seems ridiculous that Daryl Morey would even ask for that.
That's for either one of them.
Yeah, for either of those guys, for Tobias Harris, like either Evan Mobley, who was just top 3 defensive player of the year voting and projects as a future All-Star, or Jared Allen, who was an All-Star last year. And also, why would he ask for Jared Allen out of all people on that team? Because, you have the MVP at center. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know if that's a real trade package. I hope it's real. If I were a GM, this is stuff I would do. Like, if someone called about one of my players that I really didn't want to trade, I'd be like, yeah, give me Jokic for him.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, what are you talking about?
I'd bait reactions if I was a GM. I'd be like,
exactly.
Yeah, we'll take we're trying to offload some salary. I think Jokic makes about the same amount of money as this guy that I'm trying to get rid of. What do you think, man? We'll throw in a first, maybe a couple seconds. Jay Crowder, we'll throw him in.
Yeah, Jay Crowder and a first for Nikola Jokic. How does that sound?
Yeah.
Things like that.
And then that's when you turn the trade rejection off in 2K.
Exactly. You pull up the
salary cap.
Pull up the Fanspo trade machine, and you're just on there just trying things. This is like the kind of stuff you would come up with. And I mean, also coming from Keith Pompey, he's claiming that the Suns want the Sixers to be involved in a 3-team deal with them, where the Suns get Tobias Harris, Ayton goes to a third team, and the Sixers get some assets from that third team. I don't even know. Like, I don't know why there's no third team involved in that. Like, I don't know what team that would be. I guess I saw someone mention Dallas as like a potential destination. I forget what the Sixers were getting in that deal. I think they were getting Christian Wood in a sign and trade, and they were getting 2 other guys, which I guess it makes sense to add.
Kleber, man, that would be a good Sixers pickup.
Maxi Kleber would be good. I want to remember this deal, but I can't remember who came up with it, so I can't really search it on Twitter here. But anyways, it's that time of year where we're going to see some really weird trade proposals. It's going to keep going, especially if Dame like requests that trade. Which I want to talk about the Dame stuff in a moment, because there have been a lot of developments with him that's really got me like so over the Damian Lillard situation. But if like he becomes available, or any number of star guys, Paul George is rumored to potentially be on the market, or at least the Clippers are gauging his value. If any one of those guys ask out, or it becomes like well known, the trade machine is going to get bad, especially when we get to like August and September, when there's nothing happening in the NBA. The trade machine is a big mistake. It should not exist, because some of the worst tweets I've ever seen have come from the trade machine. It should be behind like a paywall or something, or you have to like verify your identity before you like do a background check before you can use the trade machine. Because a couple of years ago, or even coming into this year, some of the trades I had to look at for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander were some of the most egregious things I've ever seen in my entire life. Thank God, I think people have, for the most part, realized that Shai is not being traded, because
he's a feature Sixer, man. You just have to get over it.
Okay. I think I've got like 4 videos on my YouTube channel about how Shai is not going to be traded. Like, I had to keep talking about it because people kept bringing it up. But yeah, so if you're one of those people that uses the trade machine for horrific acts on my timeline, please stop. I'm begging you. And I guess that kind of, again, transitions into the Damian Lillard stuff, because he's the biggest name that's rumored to be on the trade market. I'm so sick of this. Just like trade him, or have him request a trade. I'm so sick of this. Will he request a trade? No, he wants to stay there, but he wants the Blazers to do this, but they didn't. Did you see the stuff about him being at that party in Miami? I know you've been really busy this weekend.
No.
Okay, so, and this is good because I can explain it to the audience too, if anyone doesn't know about it. So Damian Lillard was at a party in Miami, or somewhere in Florida, over this, I think it was yesterday.
So he's getting traded to the Heat.
There's more to it too, that some people are like, oh, he's trying to force a trade. And this all, of course, comes off of, the draft happening a couple of days ago, where they took Scoot Henderson after him saying in a couple of interviews, and apparently he's going on like every podcast that's ever existed, and people are asking him, like, what do you want? And he's like, oh, I don't want to be part of a rebuild. And there was one podcast he was on, or like an Instagram Live or something, where he was asked, like, I'm not saying you have to request a trade, but like, where would you want to go if you were traded? And he almost immediately said like Brooklyn and Miami. Like, he was waiting for someone to ask him that. So there's been all this stuff. I'm sure you know the drill. And yesterday he's at a party somewhere in Florida, and he goes on Instagram Live, and he's just talking. Dame goes on Instagram Live all the time. It's nothing new, but he's at this party in Florida, and a song starts playing in the background. I don't remember who the song's by. It's a song called Welcome to Miami. I think it's by Will Smith. and Welcome to Miami starts playing in the background, and like people behind him are like when the lyric comes on, like Welcome to Miami, you hear a bunch of people in the background sing it, which could just be because they're in Florida, but it was like Dame was at the party and people were walking by like laughing on his Instagram live. And so it became this whole thing, like people on Twitter talking about Dame's on Instagram live listening to Welcome to Miami at a party in Florida, and Dame's agent puts out a statement saying that, you know, Dame would never intentionally like do something like this. Like it was just a song being played at the party and stuff like that. Like, I'm like, it's like not a big deal. Like,
like Anthony Davis didn't wear That's All Folks shirt on his last game in New Orleans. That was just a coincidence.
It was a coincidence. It's like, even if like, I don't care if it's intentional or not. Like, I really do not care at this point. I'm so sick of the Dame stuff. Either request the trade or just say you're going to stay. Like, I don't know, man. I'm so sick of all the rumors about Dame wants to be loyal and not run from the grind, but Dame's also saying don't do a rebuild. And he's perfectly valid in both of those statements. I'm just kind of sick of hearing about it. I even put a tweet out that like somewhat got kind of popping. I think it was at like 8,000 likes last time I checked. But I was just talking about how, you know, I'm sick of this whole Dame saga. And some people are like, it's not his fault, man. And other people are saying like, it's all the media, or it's like, it's all Dame. I think both sides are partially at fault. I'm just sick of it. I just want a trade to happen at this point. And if it's not going to happen, can we stop with the, you know, will they, won't they type discourse back and forth, where every time I check my notifications, it's a new report from like Chris Haynes or someone else that's like, Damian Lillard has this thought on this like Blazers, you know, decision. So
Dame says the 12th man in the rotation must be a power forward that's at least 6'7".
Exactly. It's like the most specific things like that. It's like, I don't know, man. We're just hearing so many reports. There's so many rumors. I'm so sick of it.
Yeah, and you know, I'm sick about talking about basketball. So let's talk about our Twitter questions that are more or less basketball related.
Yeah. So shout out to y'all, by the way, real quick. Again, if you want to be in some of these episodes, I usually tweet out for Twitter questions before we do one. If we, you know, when we figure out what we're going to call the podcast, which again, comment down below with some ideas. Well, also, there's a Twitter account. I don't know. Do you still have access to that? I can't remember if we checked last time. You do?
Yeah.
Okay. We can rebrand that and we'll put out tweets on there. We'll also put it in the description. I'll try to do it on this video so that y'all can go and check that out. And we can tweet out on that so y'all see those alerts and don't have to see the rest of my tweets spreading thunder propaganda. But yeah, we ask for Twitter questions. Also drop questions down below on YouTube. It can be about anything. It doesn't have to be about like the NBA in general. So
that can be the most random thing you can think of, man. Just go for it.
Exactly.
Test the waters. Get crazy.
Not too crazy. If it's too crazy, it will not end up in the episode.
We'll see. I chose the questions for this one, so they can be crazy. We'll see. So our first one, potato versus egg salad, comes from Neil. Connor has never consumed either of them.
I've had potato salad before. You're straight up lying. I've had potato salad before.
I asked this question earlier, and you said I haven't even had those.
I know, and I lied. I know, and I lied to you. I've had potato salad. I don't even know if I've ever had egg salad. It does not sound great. I like eggs. I don't know if I want them in a salad. Like potato salad's fine. It's not my go-to.
You know, it's not an eggs in a salad. It's like egg salad.
I know it's not eggs in a salad.
You said like I don't really like eggs in my salad. That's what you said.
Well, I wouldn't want eggs in my salad, but I don't want eggs in salad form. I can just eat scrambled
eggs. I don't know.
A
hard-boiled egg in salad goes kind of hard. I'm not gonna lie.
I don't like hard-boiled eggs. If I'm eating eggs, I want like a fried egg or like a scrambled egg.
What about poached? Poached is pretty gas.
I don't know if I've ever had a poached egg. Which one is poached again?
Oh man, I'm giving my boy an egg lesson here.
I'm googling a picture of a poached egg. You
crack the egg and you put it in the pan and you got to stir it a bit so then it looks like a fried egg, but it's like really runny and it becomes really small. And you usually put it over like Benedict's and stuff.
I mean, this just seems like a weird version of a fried egg.
Well, now I'm fuzzy.
Okay, no, I think you're completely right. You're fuzzy you're fuzzy visually.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, not fuzzy in the mind.
I was like, bro, you just told me what the egg was, and now you can't remember what the poached egg is. Yeah. You're right. Yeah, but this literally just looks like a kind of fancy fried egg. So sure, I would eat a poached egg, but I don't. Potato salad is the answer to the question because
I agree with potato salad, but an egg salad sandwich every once in a while, not too bad. Not too bad.
Okay.
Okay. Our next one. I'm kind of like shifting this question a bit, but the inspiration comes from Caden and CJ. Does Lonzo Ball play another game in the NBA?
I don't know. Yeah, Kate and CJ are both kind of asking about the Bulls and whether they should blow it up or not. I think we kind of talked about this last time that we both think they should blow up the roster. And I think it was Caden in particular, might have been CJ. One of them was asking specifically about the Lonzo situation. If y'all didn't see, there was a report that Lonzo's not going to, according to the Bulls general manager Arturas Karnisovas, Lonzo's not expected to play next season. They're not expecting him to. He hasn't played in like 2.5 years at this point. He might not play again. And we're really crossing our fingers that he is. I don't know at this point. I'm going to say yes, just because I want to see it happen, but it's a really unfortunate situation because he was so good. Like, a big reason why the Bulls were the 1 seed for a better part of that season when they had him for, the first whatever games before he got injured is because of him. Like, they had multiple guys out due to COVID. They were one of the teams that got hit the hardest by it. But Lonzo's playmaking, his defense, his outside shot was really coming along. Like, that was all so incredibly valuable. And this Bulls team, I don't think they would be a championship contender or anything, but they would be so much better if Lonzo was playing. So hopefully he's able to play again sometime soon. Even if it's not for the Bulls, even if he's traded somewhere else or his contract runs up, I just hope Lonzo's able to get back out in the court at some point soon.
But to also answer the other part of that question, we both think the Bulls should blow it up.
Yeah, it's long overdue.
Blow it up, boys. Blow it up. And then our last question comes from Lindy T. Do we figure out if it's Lindy T or if it's Lint?
Lint. He said it's like the T brand. Lint, I think, is how it's pronounced.
It is pronounced Lint.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I like Lindy.
Or not the T brand, the chocolate brand. Sorry.
No, I like Lindy T, so we're gonna roll with that. Lindy T asked, funniest IRL basketball moment. I don't know if he meant like between us or like.
I think Lint also asked like which one of us is better at basketball, which I will say me.
Darn, man. I occasionally have my moments, but yeah, Connor is definitely the better player.
Ryan does have his moments. Ryan's a big fan of the Euro step into like this like little floater. That's his go-to move.
Yeah, so, that and pull threes pretty much.
Yeah, I think Lint was also asking us for like a 1v1 basketball game at some point. Maybe at some point on this hopefully new podcast channel that this episode's on will drop something like that. We want to do other stuff outside of just the podcast, like with the two of us. Of course, this is like the main focus of everything, but yeah, let us know anything that you want to see.
All right, I'll set a goal. If when we make this podcast thing, if we can get 1,000 subs within a week, Connor and I will film a 1v1 the next time that we're in the same area.
Okay, lofty goal. We'll see if y'all can do it.
Yeah, give us 1,000. Maybe I might be willing to extend that, but that's gonna be our first goal. I might give you guys a second chance. But.
Okay, we'll see next episode. But yeah, so talking about funniest IRL basketball moments. I mean, there's a few I can think of. Probably the biggest one is the two of us played I played for the most part. How many seasons were you on the team?
I was playing baseball, so I don't think I was able to play all the time, but I think I was just like a fill-in for like one of the seasons.
But me and a bunch of my friends with Ryan subbing in sometimes formed this basketball team at it's not a rec center. It's a field house. So it just has like a bunch of sports fields, like basketball, volleyball,
indoor
soccer.
Sports,
yeah. An indoor sportsplex kind of thing. So I don't know if field houses are like a, overall thing that people like are in different places. Means. Yeah. So there was one of those and they had a rec basketball league and me and my friends were like, sure, let's go ahead and make a team. So we made a team there and I don't remember who came up with the name. I think it was Caleb, but one of them came up with the name was Steel Team 6. So it's like SEAL Team 6, but Steel Team 6.
There's also 6 of y'all.
There was 6 of us at the beginning.
Which also didn't help because everyone was tired. And it did have many.
It was a short rotation. I don't think I ever got subbed out ever. But yeah, and it was just kind of like a team for fun playing in this rec basketball league. But some funny moments involving, like there's a million funny moments and we can talk about more at some point. But some of the ones that immediately come to mind is the first one, our first jerseys that we wore were just like these like black dry fit t-shirts that we kind of just got printed because we wanted something to wear. And on the front, it said Steel Team and then with the number 6. On the back, we had like a number. So like I was number 7 and that was just on the back of the shirt in like a big bold white number. But the refs, what they would do is, a foul was called on you. They would look at your jersey and they would say number whatever. If a team didn't have jerseys, they were just wearing pennies and they would ask you what your number was to keep track of it. So they would look at us. There's one game I remember in particular where he called a foul on, I think it was me, and looked at my jersey and was like, foul number 6. And I was like, I'm number 7. And he like looks again. And he had been looking at the number 6 on the front of my jersey the entire time. So he had called like 4 fouls on number 6. So this mystical number 6, which we did not have, was about to foul out in that game. And eventually he figured it out. But we had that issue pop up like 3 different times. So that was one. There was also a time when I got fouled and went to the free throw line, and the ref is about to bounce me the ball for my first shot. And he looks and he goes, hold on, and drops the ball and starts sprinting over to one of the other courts in this like sportsplex. And there's a fight going on. It was at, I think it was 11 or it was either 11 or 9-year-olds.
I think it was younger kid. I think it was even younger.
It was even younger. I think it was 9.
Like
I think
8, 9. I think 8, 9.
Yeah. But it was like these 8 and 9-year-olds playing basketball, and 2 parents got really into it and started fist fighting like over on the other court. So the ref runs over to help like 3 other refs break up this fight that's going on during a kids basketball game. And I don't get to shoot my free throws for I think like 20 minutes because they had to make sure this was the perfect icing of me at the line. So they sprinted over there, broke up the fight, and then were making sure everything was okay before restarting our game. And so I didn't shoot my free throws for maybe about like 20 minutes. So I just stood there. I think I missed the first one. I made the second. So they successfully iced me. But there was that. There was also a time when there was one of the refs who was not the same ref who broke up the fight, but this other ref was running up the court as we were doing a fast break, and someone on the team threw a pass, but he was in the way. He didn't realize he was like halfway through the court. So he drops and hits a somersault under the pass and completely dodges it. It was genuinely impressive. And the ball gets to whoever was running up the court.
These refs were not being paid enough, man, for this.
They were not getting paid enough for all the stuff happening. No, but yeah. So those were a couple of the ones that immediately come to mind. I'm trying to think of any others.
I'm trying to think if there's any when we both were playing a game. But
I was going to say if there are any when we were playing pickup, because we have a group of friends who we play pickup with, a lot of which were on this team. I'm trying to think if there's anybody.
And then we played IMs in college and stuff.
Oh yeah, we also played IMs in college, which was a good time. There was one time when I don't think I tore, but I like pulled something in my hamstring towards the end of one of the games, and so I ended up sitting out for the end. And I tried to come back the next week and almost immediately re-injured it because I'm stubborn. And so but we didn't have enough players if I didn't play. So I just hobbled around the court for the rest of the game with like one hamstring and also a bad ankle because I was favoring the hamstring. So I hurt the ankle too.
I think I just shot Chuck the whole game. We lost like 30, but it's okay.
I think we had like legitimately 5 players because everybody had like finals and stuff like that. And because I was injured, we had less players out there. So yeah, it wasn't great. Was there any other IM stuff that happened?
Oh, there was I'm trying to think. Not to come at Madison. Madison was one of we played co-ed, and she was one of Connor's girlfriends, best friends, and who's actually getting married, and she's gonna be one of the bridesmaids. So that's pretty cool.
Shout out Madison.
But I remember there was one time too where she didn't realize that, like when she didn't ever think the ball was gonna be passed to her. I think there was one time where I think we passed the ball to her, and she just kind of like braced herself like this and just smacked off her arms.
I think I remember that. Yeah, shout Madison. I think I passed her the ball, and she wasn't expecting me to pass it to her, and just not having played basketball too much before, like Ryan said, like in case you're just listening to this, like crossed her arms like they tell you to go down a water slide or something like that,
yeah.
Or like the Heimlich maneuver kind of thing. And it just bounced off, and they got a fast break bucket out of it because we were on the perimeter. But
I thought that was really funny too because the refs were kind of hard on like the guys, but they weren't calling a lot of fouls on the girls. So we just told our girls to be as extremely aggressive and like handsy as possible. Like we told them go for all the steals, be really contest everything, like just jump into people because they were not calling anything on them. So we told them, and some of the people on the other team were getting really upset about it because they're like, these girls keep fouling us, man. What's going on?
The refs were like student refs who had some of them had just learned the game. So it was not the most organized thing in the world, but yeah, IMs were really fun. That was a good time. I kind of want to get into like an organized basketball league again up here in New York, but it's really expensive. Like everything up in New York is, plus, I travel and stuff like that sometimes for the job. So I don't know. I feel like it would be kind of hard to find something consistent, but I'm able to play kind of regularly up here, which I'm trying to think of if there are any funny moments from when I've played up here. Is there anything in particular that I can think of?
Oh, I would say it's not funny, but I remember you were telling me the other day about how there's your least favorite type of player in pickup is somebody that shot chucks nonstop and plays no defense.
Man, I was playing with this guy, and it was like he kept wanting to bring the ball up the court, and every time he brought it up, he would turn it over or he would shoot the ball, and it was not a great look, or he'd give it to someone else who would more so make shots. But he kept wanting to bring the ball up the court, and every single time he was not playing defense. Like there was this really great scorer on their team, and so I was like, okay, let me pick him up. So I start playing defense on him, and playing good defense. He wasn't scoring as much, and for some reason, one of the times we come down the court, he's like, I got him. I was like, why? And then someone sets a screen and he doesn't or his guy sets a screen and he just completely leaves him wide open for three, which he was hitting nonstop threes, and he makes like a few buckets and they end up, tying the game up after being down big. And I was like, why did we switch? And I was like, let me get him. He's like, no, I got him. I was like, if you're going to shot chuck on one end, you got to at least play defense on the other. So, there, if y'all have one of those like pickup stories or like IRL basketball moments that you specifically think is funny, or like that archetype of player that you don't really want to have on your team, let us know down below. Also, let us know like what your IRL archetype for player is. Like, I think that's always fun to ask people, like what's their comparison for like a pro player. I've heard Jalen Brunson before for my game. I've also heard a little bit of Russ in terms of like my pull-up mid-range jumper. Someone told me one time that they could tell I was a Thunder fan because my pull-up jumper looked exactly like Russ's. And no, that didn't mean it was bricking for some of you that I know are going to make that joke. But
yeah, he's hitting the side of the backboard pretty much every time, so it checks out.
Yeah, so I've heard like Russ with the pull-up jumper, Jalen Brunson sometimes. I've also heard Tyrese Maxey. So like kind of guards that go to like floaters or like, mid-range type of guys. So that's typically what I've heard. I was trying to think of any others, Ryan, that you've heard before. I think we came up with player comparisons one time.
For me or for you?
For you.
If Tyrese Maxey was like 1/3 athletic, I say I kind of play like him. Like, cause I'd say my best assets are floaters and threes.
Okay, so
and my mid range is okay sometimes. So
Ryan's another believer in the mid range jumper. The mid range jumper to me is the greatest form of hoops, both in my own play and also like watching teams play, which is great because now I have Shea on my team who's a mid range assassin. Which, by the way, we never even touched on. Also with Tobias Harris's dad's comments, where apparently he called the Sixers like their front office or something like that, and said that they weren't using his son properly as a scoring assassin is the term that he used.
Only thing assassins is my belief in the team. There's nothing else there.
There are very few players I would call scoring assassins. And as much as I like Tobias Harris, I don't know if he's worth Evan Mobley, Jared Allen in a first, and I don't know if he's specifically
in there, and we'll talk.
But yeah, I think that's all of our questions for today, right?
Yeah, yep, that's it.
Okay, cool. So that's gonna wrap up episode 2 of. Let me pull up the ChatGPT thing again. Yeah, episode 2 of. Where is it? I'm trying to find a good one. Episode 2 of Basketball Banter NBA Chat with Brothers. We appreciate y'all tuning in to this one. Again, we're trying to figure out if we need to rebrand, if we do, like what names and stuff like that. So leave those down below. As always, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the podcast.
If you made it this far, comment Connor needs to try egg salad down below.
Yeah, we appreciate all y'all last time that commented that Ryan needs to quit his job. I forgot for a moment that was our like special phrase at the end for people that made it to the end. I was like, why is everyone telling Ryan to quit his job at the end of this podcast episode? So we appreciate y'all as always. Yeah, I was going to say if we hit like a certain like goal, then we'll do something, but we already kind of gave like, if we hit a certain number of if we hit like, I don't know. I was going to give a like goal.
What did the last one get?
Last podcast episode got, well, I mean, I'm not going to post this one on my channel probably. It's going to be on the new one, so it's not going to be as high.
What did we get?
Last episode got 231.
All right, if this one gets 100 likes, we'll do something.
It's very ominous. If Ryan gets 100 likes, we'll start working on a video that's like non-podcast related.
Yeah, I rock with that. We'll do a non-podcast type of video. We'll do something stupid.
Yeah,
we'll do like a tier list of like something really stupid. So if you want to see us rank stupid things, put it below and we'll do it.
Yeah. So we appreciate y'all as always for tuning into the podcast. From me and Ryan, we'll see y'all later. Ryan, is there anything last you have to say?
Nah, man, just support this and quit my job.
Yeah, so Ryan can actually quit his job. But yeah, we appreciate y'all. Maybe we'll do the live stream for free agency. We'll work on that. But yeah, we'll see y'all later. Take care and see you in the next episode.
I like that, an episode.
See you in the episode that will
Make sure you
probably
guys watch
come.
the episode, the last episode.
Watch the episode. We'll see you in the episode, and they'll probably be within the next few days. Yeah. So take care, y'all. Yeah. Drop podcast names, please, because ChatGPT does not know how to come up with a podcast.
Yeah, run those comments up, baby. Get that algorithm going. If you want to give us 10 different names and 10 different comments, that's cool with me. Just keep going.
Yeah, go for it. Go and ChatGPT, come up with dumb names, leave those anyways.
Yeah.
Also, even if we don't pick your name, we'll pick some of if there's ones that are just funny.
We'll read them off too.
We'll read off y'all's comments
next time.
Yeah. So take care, y'all. We'll see y'all next episode. Peace.
Peace.